I'm Donna.
And I'm Bruce. And this is Lyrical Wisdom.
Good morning, Bruce.
Good morning.
How are you this wonderful, beautiful, just elegant day?
It is an elegant day. That's a really good way to put it. The sun is out. It's a little crisp with the weather, and I am just loving it. I am going to happily enjoy the rest of today, especially after reading this song coming up.
I know.
This is really cool.
And I do want to say welcome each and every one of you to Lyrical Wisdom Show. Thank you for being here with us today.
Yes, thank you.
And I do want to say, grab a cup of coffee, get a cup of tea, make some popcorn, because we might be here a little extra today.
Yeah, we may take a little extra time in this episode. That is for sure.
Normally we like to keep it right around 30 minutes, you know, but I know this one's going to go well over that, Bruce.
This one is going to go longer.
Yeah, we're going to.
Almost a guarantee.
Yeah, and I feel I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I am, and I hope each and every one of you are, because I really want to not only do this song justice, but I want to bring some love to Amber.
Amber
from Ohio,
yeah.
who sent this song in as a request.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Amber. And remember, each and every one of you can send requests to
lyricalwisdomshow@gmail.com. That's lyricalwisdomshow@gmail.com. And you can also find us on YouTube, Lyrical Wisdom Show on YouTube, where we have the ability to make a comment, ask for a song to be played, like us, subscribe to us, and I think that's about it. Yeah. We're not going to say you could dislike us, because we think you're just going to like us.
No, Bruce, they're going to love us.
They're going to love us. Hey, yeah, see?
Yeah, so please leave us a request. We love doing requests.
Yes, we do.
Because, hey, guys, everybody wants to be acknowledged.
I was
to
just
be
thinking that,
seen, or just to know that you guys are out there and listening and enjoying what we're doing.
Confirmation.
So, yes. Yeah. Please. Just send us a hello in the comment section. Like what you're doing. Hey, change this, or give us a request.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So send us an email, drop a line in the comment on YouTube. And remember, you can also find us on Spotify.
That's right. We're on Spotify, Lyrical Wisdom.
Yeah. So if you're in your car or whatever, driving to work, just turn on Spotify and listen to us there.
Walking the dog, doing the gardening.
Oh, yeah. I love listening to music while I'm outside gardening.
Yeah, or maybe
taking walks.
Looking at the stars. Feeling cold on a chilly night. Listening to Lyrical Wisdom.
Yeah. So thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, Amber from Ohio, for this awesome song.
A very, very good song.
Yeah, I think we're all going to get a little nostalgic today. And so let's all cozy up, get your tea, your coffee, your beverage, your popcorn, whatever. And let's do this. Yeah. All right. Today we're going to do for you American Pie by Donna McLean. Yay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Amber. All right, American Pie. It's going to be hard for me not to sing it, but I'm going to try.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. A long, long time ago, I can still remember how that music used to make me smile. And I knew if I had my chance that I could make those people dance, and maybe they'd be happy for a while. But February made me shiver with every paper I'd deliver. Bad news on the doorstep. I couldn't take one more step. I can't remember if I cried when I read about his widowed bride. but something touched me deep inside the day the music died. So bye, bye, Miss American Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry, and them good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye, singing, "This'll be the day that I die. This'll be the day that I die." Did you write the book of love? And do you have faith in God above, if the Bible tells you so? Now, do you believe in rock and roll? Can music save your mortal soul? And can you teach me how to dance real slow? Well, I know that you're in love with him, 'cause I saw you dancing in the gym. You both kicked off your shoes. Man, I dig those rhythm and blues. I was a lonely teenage bronco buck with a pink carnation and a pickup truck, but I knew I was out of luck the day the music died. I started singing, "Bye, bye, Miss American Pie." Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Them good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye, singing, "This'll be the day that I die. This'll be the day that I die." Now for 10 years we've been on our own, and moss grows fat on a rolling stone, but that's not how it used to be when the jester sang for the king and queen in a coat he borrowed from James Dean, and a voice that came from you and me. Oh, and while the king was looking down, the jester stole his thorny crown. The courtroom was adjourned. No verdict was returned. And while Lennon read a book on Marx, the quartet practiced in the park, and we sang dirges in the dark the day the music died. We were singing, "Bye, bye, Miss American Pie." Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Them good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye, singing, "This'll be the day that I die. This'll be the day that I die." Helter skelter in a summer swelter, the birds flew off with a fallout shelter. 8 miles high and falling fast, it landed foul on the grass. The players tried for a forward pass, with the jester on the sidelines in a cast. Now the halftime air was sweet perfume, while the sergeants played a marching tune. We all got up to dance. Oh, but we never got the chance, 'cause the players tried to take the field. The marching band refused to yield. Do you recall what was revealed the day the music died? We started singing, "Bye, bye, Miss American Pie." Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Them good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye and singing, "This'll be the day that I die. This'll be the day that I die." Oh, and there we were, all in one place, a generation lost in space, with no time left to start again. So come on, Jack be nimble, Jack be quick. Jack Flash sat on a candlestick, 'cause fire is the devil's only friend. Oh, and as I watched him on the stage, my hands were clenched in fists of rage. No angel born in hell could break that Satan's spell. And as the flames climbed high into the night to light the sacrificial rite, I saw Satan laughing with delight the day the music died. He was singing, "Bye bye, Miss American Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Them good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye and singing, 'This'll be the day that I die. This'll be the day that I die.'" I met a girl who sang the blues, and I asked her for some happy news, but she just smiled and turned away. I went down to the sacred store where I'd heard the music years before, but the man there said the music wouldn't play. And in the streets the children screamed, the lovers cried, and the poets dreamed, but not a word was spoken. The church bells all were broken. And the three men I admire most, the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, they caught the last train for the coast the day the music died. And they were singing, "Bye bye, Miss American Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. And them good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye, singing, 'This'll be the day that I die. This'll be the day that I die.'"
Wow.
Woo!
That is quite a song. Goodness.
I kind of wonder where he was at in his life and what was going on when he wrote this.
I agree.
Because I love how it is life.
It is.
I mean, it starts off, just being born almost, that happy, joyful moment,
Yeah.
If I had a chance, I could make those happy people dance and, but February, anyway, we'll start at the beginning.
No, absolutely. I feel like it, if we think of the whole song in its entirety now, this happens every time we do this. And, so I don't want to spend too much time on saying what we always say. It hit me again that when I listened to this and I've sang it so many times.
Me too.
I did not hear what I just heard in what you read.
Yeah.
And to me, it sounded almost like a little bit of a lament.
I was feeling it,
Yes.
Bruce,
Yeah.
as I was reading it too.
Yeah. And so I agree. I think that, as we start to look at this, I think we're going to see, that part of that definitely made up some of the flavor of this song, because a long, long time ago, I can still remember how that music used to make me smile. It's immediate right there.
Right.
Starts off
Something's
with
happening.
Yeah, something's happening, and
the music. I'm not smiling anymore.
Yeah, and I remember how that used to make me feel. So obviously, there's been a change, and there's a little bit of that nostalgia, that lament.
Right.
And I knew if I had my chance that I could make those people dance, and maybe they'd be happy for a while. There it is again. There's that little, tuck in that little bit of maybe they'll be happy again or they'll be happy for a while.
It's hope. I mean, it's like, I see what's happening in the world. I see, the death, the destruction, the anxiety, the whatever, you want to label it. I see it.
Yeah. Or feeling it in a way in their own, like, let's say somebody out there listening to us right now is thinking, well, I kind of know what that feels like. For me, it was when I went through this and I felt like that. And it could be a purely individual thing for
it always is.
Yeah,
it's because it's choice. It's how do you choose to feel in that moment, even though what's happening could be outside of you.
Yes.
It is you that allows it to affect you.
And the beautiful thing about how you just said that is then it says, "But February made me shiver with every paper I'd deliver. Bad news on the doorstep. I couldn't take one more step." It was just what you're saying in a beautiful poetic paragraph about February and the bad news, and you know, I had, whatever, it was debilitating is the word I'm thinking of. I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't
Mm-hmm.
take one more step. It seems like exactly what you said, the outside influence
Mm-hmm.
making somebody feel like this is happening to me.
Right,
You know,
right. And what do I always say, Bruce?
you
My
always
little
say,
words of
oh my
wisdom
gosh.
for you all today listening here on Lyrical Wisdom. Nothing ever happens to you. Everything happens for you.
Absolutely.
Because we all have choice. How do we choose to be, feel, react in that moment?
Yes.
So, and I love this because all I can vision, Bruce, is this young kid, probably maybe between the ages of 10 and 15. In other words, he doesn't quite have a car yet,
Yeah.
but he has life and he has dreams and he has, and he's riding his bicycle delivering papers,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
tossing them on the doorstep,
Yeah.
That's the good old days. That is, that's the American pie, the American dream
Yes.
that, we all know we lived and is in quote the past. You know
It
what I mean?
is.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
February made me shiver because it is cold in February and he's, has his jacket on, but he's riding his bike in that cold air delivering the newspapers
Yeah.
and having to deliver the bad news to every single door.
Yeah.
That is what I think he is saying. I couldn't take one more step.
Yep.
In other words,
Yeah.
I know this is my job and I
Yeah.
know this is how I am supporting myself right now. But what am I doing to other people?
Yeah.
I'm delivering this bad news and what is it doing to them?
And then he says, I can't remember if I cried when I read about his widowed bride, but something touched me deep inside the day the music died. It is exactly saying what you said. And
Right.
and Don McLean and his writers who, they wrote it so much like what you just said. You just kind of gave the synopsis, and they did it in the poetic way.
Right.
And
Because,
so,
Bruce, I'm going to take this opportunity to say something because it is coming in so loud and clear right now. It is just beautiful. It is my truth that our physical bodies, all 70 trillion cells that they are light, sound, and vibration.
yeah.
We are music. Each and every one of us is a musical note in this melody of the world.
That's beautiful.
In this, harmony of life. And we all have that choice of how we're going to present our note.
Yes.
Are we going to present it in tune? Or are we going to be out of tune? You know what I'm trying to say?
No, absolutely. Yeah.
And so for me, in reading this, at first, I was trying to connect because I'm trying to remember. I know this song is from the 70s. And I believe, I can't remember, but the death of the widowed bride, I think, was John F. Kennedy's death. But then it goes into touch me deep inside the day the music died. So I also am thinking, I don't know, Bob Marley, there was somebody connected to the music industry that died. And it was, I know Elvis died in the 70s, but I just can't remember if that was, was he speaking literally? Because for me, I took it so spiritually. It doesn't, it could have been any person who, well, it had to have been a male figure because he left a widowed bride.
Yeah.
But the day the music died, it was, it was, to me, music is life, is the individual, is the person.
Yeah,
So,
no, I think you're right. And I think that in a way, that's one part of what we could take as one step farther. We can take that extra step and look at, the bad news on the doorstep and how, we can look at how that really made him feel. And in a way, you know, we could also look at what we all know listening out there. You know, the news doesn't always reflect how we can present ourselves, just like what you were saying.
Right.
It doesn't always reflect that. And
Right.
and so Donna, you know, I know that you were just going to tell me something else about how that song kind of came about.
Right.
You know, because even more information is...
Well, because we have a lovely assistant that helps us record these moments for each and every one of you. My beautiful, wonderful, talented daughter, who you all have met on the show before,
yes.
Allison Bedrosian.
Yes.
And she just kind of snuck me her, you know, little piece of paper. This song is written about Buddy Holly.
Okay, now
He died in a plane crash.
Yes, I remember this
quite
story.
a few. There was, you know, a few musicians that were killed in that plane crash. But this particular song, Buddy Holly was Don McLean's like music idol,
Wow.
and it was written. That plane crash, I believe, was in 1959.
Wow.
So. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But yeah, I believe we are the music.
Yeah.
And yes, he's saying the music. Buddy Holly died. And at that time, he was a very, very influential musical figure for America. And in that time, the 50s, think about it. The 50s and the 60s, come on, y'all.
Yeah.
That was like, the 60s was all about love, the love generation, peace and love. And the 50s was all about, you know, dancing and music and being alive.
Yeah, blues and rock and roll. And, There's a reference in here to... I saw you dancing in the gym. You both kicked off your shoes just to reflect back to the sock hops.
Yes, you know, yes, I was thinking about that too. So we're at the chorus now, right?
Yeah.
Right? Bye bye, Miss American Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. And them good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye, singing, "This'll be the day that I die. This'll be the day that I die." I mean, even in this song and in that time, they knew that if you remove music, sound from your life, you simply cannot live anymore.
No, suddenly
because we are sound.
Yeah.
We are music.
Yeah.
You know?
We have to provide ourselves with the food that truly nourishes us, and music is a part of that. Every single soul out there resonates with music.
Yeah, there is a beautiful movement right now to bring back sound therapy into our, you know, everyday lives.
Yes.
And I know, Bruce, you have discovered a beautiful ancient musical instrument, the oboe.
Or actually the didgeridoo.
Oh, the didgeridoo. That's right. I'm sorry. The
I love
didgeridoo.
the oboe too. But yeah,
I love the didgeridoo.
Me too.
Just that sound can really move in the body.
It really can
move energy. So, Miss American Pie. Let's talk about Miss American Pie.
That I feel like is the reflection on what we kind of create. It's like if we think of time as a construct, I think we think of certain nostalgic memories become a construct, and we think of those things as a definition and a framework that helps us look at things in our future. And I don't know if that made sense at all, but that's the way I look at that, because when we say "Bye Bye Miss American Pie" in this song, I feel like it is from that idea, that ideal, that looking back on what we think of something from the past, and now we're going to carry it forward to the future. Because this song has become, well, it became a movie. American Pie the movie.
That's true.
It's become like a calling to people of different, beliefs, and people think of it as, well, that's the American Pie, that's that iconic Americana kind of feel, but it's mostly the feeling inside.
Well, that's what I wanted. I can see the whole concept of it all through the lens of the United States.
Yes.
I mean, what stands so high that people go to New York City or whatever to look at all the time, other than Miss Liberty, the Statue of Liberty? And it is a Miss. See, that's the difference too. It's MISS, Miss American Pie.
Yeah.
So it's like that, the dream of freedom, the dream of liberty, the dream of, unitedness, is, and it is American dream, because you think of pie. What comes to mind when you think of pie? I mean, here in the South, it's apple pie.
I was going to say
and
apple pie.
And when you have a slice of apple pie, whether it's a la mode or not,
or maybe you're out in an area.
It's going to make you feel good.
It is, or maybe you're in that place where they have shoe fly pie, or maybe
mincemeat pie,
or
pecan pie,
or rhubarb or something. There's a lot of beautiful and delicious things out there. But I agree, this Bye Bye Miss American Pie drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry, because they're wonderful poetic words, but they also hint at another song that talks about apple pie. And,
I've been trying to think of that song this whole time,
baseball,
Bruce.
hot dogs, apple pie, and Chevrolet. Yeah, and so...
I knew there was another song that talked about this, yes. In this time period, in the 50s, 60s, it was all about that Chevy.
Yeah.
Whether it was, a car or a truck, it was all about having, that was part of the American dream.
The family, having
and just cruising down the street in your Chevy.
Yeah. No, that was a male, a wonderful, enjoyment for, a father, and, having a wife at home, like June Cleaver, making the American pies, and just all of these beautiful memories. And them good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye, singing "This'll Be the Day That I Die." Sometimes when I listen to that, now that we're reading it, and this is only in this moment with you guys listening, I think maybe that is that comment of Buddy Holly and his friends sitting on that airplane, drinking whiskey and rye, singing "This'll Be the Day That I Die." Because I can only imagine that as that plane was about to crash, that was a thought that those people had right in that moment. This'll be the day that I die.
Wow.
And so that could be
That's
a comment.
powerful to think about that.
That could be a comment on, I don't know what Buddy Holly liked to drink necessarily, but I would just have to say that, the actual drink could be a moot point. Because
that's true. That's true.
That could be a moot point.
Then I think in that particular time period, whiskey and rye is whiskey. It's just made from rye instead of the corn, I believe. It's, whiskey and rye drinking, alcohol, I guess, is what I would call that. But Bruce, just for a moment, I would like to visit the levee.
Oh, of course.
Because I don't know, but for me, something came in that was very relevant and beautiful that I just wanted to share with everyone.
Absolutely.
So what is a levee but a berm or holding water?
Oh, wow.
It is a wall that has been built up that helps support the city beyond it or the land beyond it from being flooded. So it holds water. That's what a levee is. And the levee was dry, Bruce. So they went to the water. And for me, water is very cleansing. It is, and it's beautiful, and it's the flowiness of being. And it's like they purposely drove their Chevy to the levee, okay, because they wanted to surround themselves in that water, in that cleansingness, because the American dream, the pie is being eaten, is being stolen, is gone, it's
We're
dying.
Saying bye-bye,
But the levee was dry.
There
was nothing being held anymore.
Yeah, it's a bit of a bad omen, if you will.
Well, not only that, yeah, it was that sense of
Yeah,
hopelessness
yeah.
of where's my support?
Yeah. Whereas
That's what I was, yeah,
that thing that we know is always there, we go and we try to find it. Nope, not there this time. That last leg of the cow is ripped out from under it, and now we're in new uncharted territory.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
I think that's what happened in New Orleans in
yeah,
that
yeah.
hurricane. The levee broke.
Katrina,
Yes,
yes,
yes.
the levees. Well, and
So bye, Miss Samira. Oh, we just did that. Where are we at? Oh my
did you
gosh.
write the
Oh
book
yeah.
of love? And do you have faith in God above? If the Bible tells you to, or so. I really do like that line, but I also like it because I think that it is a little bit of a comment on how we were talking about how we look back on these nostalgic things and this lament that we're talking about. You know, did you write the book of love, and do you have faith in God above? If the Bible tells you so, I think that's kind of like an ironic, if you will, or a kind of clever comment to say, because the Bible tells you.
Right.
Like, you know, do you really claim to know what the book of love would contain? Because I'm going to be honest, I have no idea.
Did you write it?
Right. That would be, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
lot.
And do you have faith in God above? In other words, who wrote the book of love?
Yes.
Who defines love?
Yeah.
And where is your faith? Where is your
Exactly.
levee? Where is
Yeah.
your support?
Yeah.
Is it just because the Bible tells you so?
Yeah. You know, where did these feelings originate from?
Right.
And he goes on to say, now, do you believe in rock and roll? Can
Now,
music?
do you
Yeah.
believe in rock and roll?
Yes.
In
now.
other words, rock and roll is dying. What's happening?
Yeah.
The American dream is being lost. Now do you believe in rock and roll? Can music save your mortal soul? And can you teach me how to dance real slow?
Almost like a dance real slow to me makes me feel like they want to slow down time.
Yes.
Really appreciate and saturate themselves in the present.
That's where I'm going with that too,
Yeah.
Bruce. Yeah.
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 Because then you have, you know, do you believe in rock and roll? And can music save your mortal soul? Well, you know, if all of that is possible, because it is a question, you know.
If you're going through life just rocking out all the time, not paying attention, fast, you know, weaving through the traffic, you know, is that really going to save your soul by just being all rock and roll?
Yeah.
Well,
That's so funny.
can you teach me how to dance real slow?
Because then that rock and roll could be bouncing real fast or moving. That tempo could be real quick. But
Yes.
honestly, the slower we dance, the more we can enjoy it.
You know, I am finding, Bruce, the slower I dance, the more time I have.
Yes.
Time
yes.
seems to slow
It
down
seems to just
with
calm
me.
down.
Yes, I absolutely love that. And I couldn't help but when you read those lyrics, did you write the book of love? Do you have faith in God above if the Bible tells you so?
Yeah.
I just all of a sudden I flashed to myself as a kid at church and singing that. I know that this song has been so long. It had to have been in the 60s, you know.
Yeah.
Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible
It tells you
me
so.
so.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, I should have that belief even if the Bible didn't tell me so. That's what I'm like.
The little programming, yeah.
Yeah, the programming is, you know, so who writes the book of love?
Yeah.
I loved that.
I do too.
Loved that.
I do too. And
well, I know that you're in love with
I
him
love this section because
I saw you dancing in the gym.
Yeah.
You both kicked off your shoes. Man, I dig those rhythm and blues. I do love this too because it's a little bit of, I guess, sadness in that he must like this girl
Yes.
who he thinks she's in love with the other guy because they're dancing in the gym together
Yeah.
and they both kicked off their shoes.
Yeah.
And in that moment, though, he was able to let go because he allowed the music just to flow through his body.
I love those. I dig those rhythm and
I
blues.
just dig those rhythm and
Yeah,
blues.
and I love it too because I was thinking the same thing. It's a nostalgic lament. It's simply a channel to invite all of us who are listening to this song to join him in that memory and to go back in time with him in that memory, not having his memory, having our own.
Right.
Because then the singer, the writer, the music is taking us all. When we're listening to it, we're going back in time. And it then goes on to even push that even harder when he says, I was a lonely teenage I was a lonely teenage bronc buck with a pink carnation and a pickup truck. But I knew I was out of luck the day the music died. It just takes us back to that feeling of being, that young person, living that youthful existence where we feel like we're just like I want to think of it almost like the puppy that's running around in the backyard because it just got let out after being home all day waiting for somebody to come home, and it gets the zoomies, and it just goes.
I know what the zoomies are all about.
Yeah.
I have a beautiful little zoomie at home named Emmy.
Yes.
Allison's. Yes, she does.
And
when
so
she sees her moms come home, she runs around the house, and they call it the zoomies.
That's amazing, because that's what my nephew also calls his dog's habit in the backyard. And that's why I think that's what we all experience when we're young. As we age and as we mature and we do the things that we do and we experience the things we experience, then we kind of have a little bit of take a step back and take a deep breath and analyze the situation before we go jumping in like we used to. And that's where I feel like this is a comment on, because we've all experienced that.
Yes, this definitely, these two lines in this whole lyric is high school for everybody. Yeah. And I think he does such a beautiful job of saying, well, I know that you're in love with him. Yeah. Because I saw you dancing in the gym. Yeah. You both kicked off your shoes. Man, I dig those rhythm and blues. In other words, he's taken a moment, like you said, to think about that high school days, because he admits, I was a lonely teenage bronc buck with a pink carnation and a pickup truck, but I knew I was out of luck the day the music died. And for him, in that moment of seeing the girl with him, the other him, dancing in the gym, I think he allowed that musical note within him to die. That's what he's saying here is, I was in love with this girl, and I remember the very moment that she broke my heart. Yep. You know what I'm saying? Yep. In other words, I saw how she loved him, not me. Yes. Dancing, kicking their shoes off and being free. And you know what? In that moment, I remember that music. And I really dig that kind of music. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I love the process, how he's allowing himself to understand, I was lonely. And I was at that dance wearing my pink carnation and driving my pickup truck, which was a Chevy, by the way. And I remember the day the music died in me. Because he was out of luck. The next verse says, I started singing.
It went right to the
yes, I started singing Bye Bye Miss American Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Them good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye, singing This'll Be the Day That I Die. So he knew in that moment that aspect of him, he was allowing it to die. Yeah. He was saying goodbye.
No, that's absolutely,
He was transforming it, is what, I believe we're all
transmuting,
transmuting it, we're all talking about that now. And then he grows up. Yeah. For 10 years, we've been on our own. And the moss grows fat on a rolling stone. But that's not how it used to be. That's interesting because when you read that, moss doesn't grow on a rolling stone.
Yeah, that's what we've all been taught to learn or taught to know.
But for him, it grew fat on his rolling stone. Yeah. That's not how it used to be.
No. Oh, no, that rolling stone would shake it off.
Yeah. It wouldn't allow it because it would just keep rolling. Moss grows where it's shaded and cool and moist.
He's saying, nope, this is going to be...
That's 10 years. Yeah. So he's obviously with someone because he's saying we've been on our own. Yeah. But who is the we? Yeah. Is he talking about society as a collective? Or is he
Or,
talking about, me and you, like him and his wife and
yeah,
his family? That's the beauty of this, is because we really don't know.
that's true.
He's
Yeah.
just allowing you as the listener to fill that part in.
Yeah, I was just thinking fill in the blank. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then when the jester sang for the king and queen, in a coat he borrowed from James Dean, and a voice that came from you and me. And that's interesting because in a coat he borrowed from James Dean, because that would have been right around that time, the 50s into the
Hmm.
60s,
Hmm.
when James Dean became this popular icon
Oh, yeah.
and all
Very
these
popular.
things were happening. And so, who do you think he's talking about? The jester sang for the king and queen.
Well, we all know that a jester is the court clown,
Yeah,
and that he's actually hired for that.
yeah,
He's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
hired for his entertaining aspect.
Yes, yes.
So it's obvious that he's alluding to that aspect, that jesters also were, I guess, magical magicians as well,
Yes, yeah.
because they could like make you believe something that wasn't true.
They could fool you.
Yes, there it
Yeah,
is. They
yeah.
they were the ones to fool you.
Yes.
So the fool,
The Joker.
the Joker, yeah, he is singing for the king and queen, and he's wearing a coat that he borrowed from James Dean. In other words, look at me. I'm an icon.
Yeah.
I,
I'm cool,
yeah,
like
yeah.
James Dean.
But I love this. He sang to the king and queen in a voice that came from you
That is
and me.
profound. That is very profound. And I think that that's because of the fact that that's why I'm thinking, who are the king and queen? Because if the jester is singing for them in a coat that he borrowed from James Dean and a voice that came from you and me, that is an indication of quite the voice. And that voice is the voice of all.
Mm-hmm.
That's the
Mm-hmm.
voice of all.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Yep. So for me, it's just alluding back to the beginning of the manipulation.
yes,
Of, the king and queen simply could be whatever you wish to call it, whether it's the president or the queen of England. There's so many different, it's that authority.
yes.
Let's just call it
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
authority. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
jester stole his thorny crown when the king was looking down, and the courtroom was adjourned. No verdict was returned.
Yeah. What's so funny is, how did we know we were in a courtroom?
Until they say
And
right at the very end of that.
mhm.
That is an
The
amazing.
courtroom
Yeah.
was adjourned. So it's like, for me, it is so powerful in that in life, this is a lot of, I believe, what, I hate to say this way, but what the issue
Yeah.
is that everybody's walking around in judgment
Yes.
of each
Yes.
other.
Yes. Yes.
It's like
yes.
we're always on trial.
Yeah.
And that is the beauty of this song, is he's saying, America, look, we've been in this courtroom this whole time, and we have jesters, and the king and queen to me is simply in the moment who is in charge in that moment. And there's always somebody that's trying to manipulate all of America
Of
with what
course.
they're saying,
Yeah.
and,
Like,
and using our voices.
Yeah.
In other words, we have been
Manipulated.
suppressed
Yep.
in our voice by those
Yes.
wearing the coat of James Dean,
Yep.
by, just people that are in the public constantly.
Telling us what we should think and how we should feel. It's like the phrase, milk does the body good. Beef, it's what's for dinner. Pork, the other white meat. Green Giant, when he says ho ho ho. It's like everything that we're sold in that way has it wants us to buy it. It wants us to use it. It wants us to think that it is good for us. And so I agree. The jester could be, the inner child of all of us singing the song to the king and queen, who could be the representation of Adam and Eve every single male, every single female on the planet or in existence, you know.
And the jester could be that.
Sense of humor.
Well, I think it goes on to say, I think he kind of alludes to it. Does he say it's Satan? As he goes on?
When he still steals the thorny crown, I think of that as a moment where the jester stole his thorny crown. So obviously that crown was something that was like the one they put on Jesus's head.
Right.
It's not going to make the king feel very good.
Right.
The courtroom was adjourned, meaning the jester took that action. Everybody stopped.
Right.
Everything stopped, and no verdict was returned. So we are basically stuck in judgment without any judgment being made.
Right.
So,
and we don't even know what the trial was about.
Exactly.
Except that it's us. It's for me, it's that American dream.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what's on trial right now, is just the, choice. The judgment of who's doing what, who said, it's like, wow, this is a beautiful song.
And while Lenin read a book on Marx, the quartet practiced in the park, and we sang dirges in the dark the day the music died. And I think that's it's a lament. It's talking about, Lenin read a book on Marx. Well, Karl Marx wrote the book that he wrote, and all of these, the manifesto, and the people that read it, people learn things from these different books that they write in history, whether they're good books or bad books. That is not, our comment. I'm just thinking this is really, a comment on what kind of sounds like the quartet practiced in the park and we sang dirges in the dark. It almost sounds like if you experience a funeral parade in New Orleans, where they have that slow dirge, and it's like not a quartet, it's actually a large band. And, there's that like singing of that, and that kind of just lament, kind of that sense of being in that melancholy for just that moment, until we can, of course, burst out of it and celebrate. But I think it's just simply a comment on what you just said.
Yeah.
All of these things are kind of looking at the fact that we have this moment where we're living in judgment and pointing at each other, going, "You are you are the cause of my pain. These things from outside of me, those are causing me the problems." And really, we've created all of those things.
Yeah, and Lenin, isn't that like a real, almost, I want to say, socialism, communism? It's the aspect of everybody is one, but under someone else's control.
Right, yeah.
In other words, the one is not free.
Exactly.
There's no freedom.
No.
It's like you have to be part of us.
Yep.
You have to do as we say.
And you have to do it our way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It is,
right.
It is very, very controlling.
And that's why they're singing dirges in the dark,
Yep.
in my opinion.
Yes. No, absolutely.
Is because we're now kind of forced, our American dream, we're no longer allowed to have our individual American dream.
No,
because the music died.
And we there's
within us.
They did, and part of that was the judgments in the courtrooms of what you could call public opinion, where people are constantly looking at somebody else, when the reality is we all control these things inside of us, but we are all also being gaslit into believing that the things that people tell us sometimes are either, the truth or not the truth, but we are just so easily manipulated without listening to our own true heart and intuition.
Right. So then it goes to we sang "Bye-bye, Miss American Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Them good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye, singing, 'This'll be the day that I die. This'll be the day that I die.'"
Yeah.
And then it goes into helter skelter in a summer swelter. The birds flew off with a fallout shelter. 8 miles high and falling fast, it landed foul on the grass. So for me, this is all about, I don't know about you, Bruce, but I can remember in the 60s us having to have bomb drills
Yes.
in school.
Yeah.
They would like sound the alarm at school.
Yeah.
I was in elementary school. I was in kindergarten, first grade. It scared me. We would, the Cold War was going on then.
I was just
right?
thinking the Cold War was happening,
Yes.
and we had
to like, when the alarm went off, we had to exit our classroom, go into the hallway, and put our head down and cover it with our arms. It was a bomb drill.
Yeah, no,
and so this is what he's saying. He remembers, and what I love about this is you realize he's kind of also going through the seasons for us, which is all about life.
Yeah.
It started off, in the winter when it's cold, and now here we are in the summer where it's sweltering.
Yes.
The heat's coming in.
Yes, it is.
You know what I mean? Especially because of that helter-skelter. The birds flew off with a fallout shelter. In other words, I don't know about you, but I can remember growing up going to see my grandmother and everybody having a fallout shelter.
Yeah.
It was this silver door in the backyard that opened up and steps that went underground, and they had little cans of food and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if people really do that anymore, but I tell you, almost every house in the 60s, 50s, 60s was built with, a fallout shelter in the backyard.
That's how my grandparents' home was built. And it's interesting because it describes that 8 miles high and falling fast. It landed foul on the grass. And then, it says the bombs came, but then the players tried for a forward pass with the jester on the sidelines in a cast. And I think of that because I think basically that's saying the jester could have been in the game doing better for the team that we want to win, if you will, but they're not able to play. It's like your star quarterback is suddenly sidelined because of an injury.
Oh, Bruce, that's beautiful, because I also was looking at another lens. For me, it's the movie, it's the play.
No, you're right.
And so here we are as the team trying really hard to make that forward pass out on the field. And here's the jester sitting on the sidelines laughing at us. He's in the cast of the play. But not helping one single bit, like you said.
He's
just saying, "Ha ha, I see you."
He's a special guest artist that isn't in the show that
right,
day.
But he's still in the cast, meaning that it's still that shadow within us that we are still working through, whether it is the anxiety, the victimhood, the fear, whatever it is that we struggle with.
Yes.
I call that the jester.
No, that's true, yeah.
But funny. At first I saw him in a cast, like his leg in a cast. And then I was like, ooh, but he could be part of the cast of the play of life.
No, and because then you're right, because now the halftime air was sweet perfume while the sergeants played a marching tune. We all got up to dance, but we never got the chance. And I listened to that, and it says, because the players tried to take the field, the marching band, they refused to yield. Do you recall what was revealed the day the music died? And I think about that, and I think, thinking of all of these things that they're talking about, the helter-skelter, summer-swelter, fallout shelter, 8 miles high and falling fast, landing foul on the grass. And it suddenly sounds like they were at a football game and the bombs started to fall. Mm-hmm. And if you think of it literally.
And the alarm went off.
Yeah.
Yep.
And, the sergeants started playing the marching tune, the halftime air was Sweet Perfume, and we all got up to dance, but we never got the chance because there was that moment when it was suddenly
chaos.
The
players ran onto the field, but the marching band was still there because they refused to yield.
Yeah, it was.
Do you know what was revealed that moment that the music died? I mean, that is so beautiful because it's like, I think it's also showing us that in our life, we come to a time when we are both the players and the marching band.
Yes.
And we're being, we have to sit with ourselves and go within and find out what is it that the jester is, within me
Trying to teach us.
trying to say, trying to reveal. I really want to just get up and dance because this is a really cool tune.
Yeah.
This thing called life. I'm really having fun right now. But then all of a suddenly here come the players.
Yeah.
It's almost like that moment of a meditation when you're so deep and you're so connected and you feel that love, that connection to all that is, and you just want to stay there.
Yeah.
And then
you don't want to be bothered. Yeah.
Time, maybe whoever's leading the meditation or whatever, something happens and you have to come back into the body. You're like, no. And I think that's what he's talking about here. Because for me, that marching band, that music, that swaying, that being, that connection is, that music, that band. And then here come the players, which is reality, life, time to go to work, time to get up, alarm's going off, it's like, no, I don't want to yield. Amazing. I don't want to yield.
That's amazing because even though they go into the chorus, when we get to the next part of it, you'll see that's amazing. We started singing, meaning the people in the stands, the people that are feeling these things that we're talking about.
Right.
Bye, bye, Miss American Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Them good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye and singing "This'll Be the Day That I Die."
Yeah.
And and there we were, all in one place, a generation lost in space, with no time left to start again. It was just like what you were talking about.
Yeah.
And that's that thing that he was just saying, here we are, and we're like lost in space, and we don't know, how we're going to pick ourselves up and get going again. So come on, Jack be nimble, Jack be quick, Jack Flash sat on a candlestick, because fire is the devil's only friend. It's like we're trying to light a fire under ourselves to re-motivate and inspire, because we've all suddenly found ourselves in one place, lost in space. And we feel like there's no time left to start again. Mm-hmm. Suddenly this urgency is taking us over. We got to, somebody's got to do something, or, we got to go get those guys, or got to stop them from doing that, and all these kinds of like approaches that kind of have that feel of that fire that we need to light,
right. But it is so fascinating because right here, Bruce, I think we really get to see where we were in that time of our generation, because we're talking 50s and 60s here. And at that time, there was such a deep connection to religion and to the devil, and what is called hell, where if you sin, you're going to be burned in hell, because he says fire is the devil's only friend. Yeah. And since then, think about it, Bruce, we're talking 60, 70 years ago.
Yeah.
70
astonishing.
Years ago. Where we're at now, we understand that fire is that what we need.
Yes.
Fire is that element that's within us that does burn away all that is no longer serves us and allows us to become the phoenix, to become, what it is. It transforms.
It does. It is such a transformative.
So there is such, a big, you can see how much we've grown.
And that's funny that you say that, because fire is the devil's only friend. And then it says, and as I watched him on the stage, my hands were clenched in fists of rage. No angel born in hell could break that Satan's spell. And that to me is where this is that lament of somebody standing behind these actions in this play and these things that are happening with the cast of characters that there are. And they're manipulating it. They're pulling the strings from behind.
Yeah.
And no angel born in hell could break that Satan's spell. And as the flames climbed high into the night to light that sacrificial rite, I saw Satan laughing with delight the day the music died. And that reference of this kind of religious, if you will, spin on some of these metaphors, because they help really instill the idea that this is not just really about religion. It's about this story that they're telling about the 8 miles high and falling fast, and the fire, is coming to cleanse basically everything. We're going to burn it all. But really, it's almost as if, the devil was sitting there manipulating everybody and getting them to do all of this. And in the end, he just brings it all back to, I saw Satan laughing with delight the day the music died, because that was the devil's intent, was to make people destroy themselves.
Right.
To light this, to light the sacrificial rite.
Yeah.
That was the
and
whole
I
intent.
believe that for me, I can simply replace the word devil with what people now call like darkness.
Oh, yeah.
Or negativity.
Yes.
That energy that does, like, it's darkness. And what does fire do but bring on the light?
Yes, it does.
So it lights us up.
Yes, it does.
And so, yeah, I mean, it works still.
Yeah.
Just bringing it back within, because in my belief, there is no devil.
Yeah.
It's the devil is that aspect of that we allow to control us.
Yes.
That,
that
what
aspect
doesn't bring us the joy.
Yeah.
In other words, that doesn't allow us to play our music.
That's right,
or to hear our music.
To hear our music, yeah.
Right, because then it says he, meaning the devil, right?
Yeah.
He was singing Bye Bye Miss American Pie, drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. And then it goes on to say, I met a girl who sang the blues, and I asked her for some happy news, but she just smiled and turned away.
It's almost as if there's a denial there, and a celebration of being in that kind of dark place and being in the negativity, being the victim.
Right. And for me, it's also that aspect of searching outside of yourself.
Yes.
In other words, give me some happy news.
Yeah.
She smiled and walked away. In other words, you got to find that happy news within you.
Yes. Because
it is there all the time in you.
Yeah.
Find it.
Yeah. Why should, and not why should somebody have to tell you, but really it's, when you have that inside of you, that fire burning inside of you that is happy and joy, then when somebody asks for it, why would you want to give it away?
Right.
Why would you want to give it away? And so I went down to the sacred store where I'd heard the music years before, but the man there said the music wouldn't play. And in the streets, the children screamed, the lovers cried, and the poets dreamed, but not a word was spoken. The church bells were all broken. This, to me, that's a metaphor. These are metaphors. Mm-hmm. And the 3 men I admire most, the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, they caught the last train for the coast. And all of these things are just saying, I met a girl who sang the blues, and I saw her, and I asked her for some. She smiled. She had the joy inside of her, but she's like, you got to go find it. And then.
So he went to the sacred store to look for it, Bruce.
But the man said the music wouldn't play. The bells aren't going to sound. In the streets, the children screamed, the lovers cried, and the poets dreamed, because basically the comment here is, the 3 men I admire most, they've left town too, because the person that is singing these words has turned off their own ears to be able to hear.
They have gone to that place of hopelessness, of the bottomless pit, the where we all can rise from. That is the place where the music dies. Once you experience that death of self, of who you think you are and what you are and all that, because you're defined by all these labels as, a lover, a child, a poet, whatever.
Yes.
When you let go of those labels and just go back to the dark womb of nothingness, then that's when you can begin to hear the music again.
Yes, and we can be reborn and become something beautiful. And that's, they saying the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. They were singing Bye Bye, Miss American Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. And them good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye, singing This'll be the day that I die. This'll be the day that I die. And some of that also makes me think of this'll be the day that I am reborn.
Yes, yes. And you know what, Bruce? I'll say one more thing, and thank you all so much for hanging in with us. But I love this because I think he took like everything he knew that he could by speaking to what every American for sure, but anybody who's had anything to do with religion knows the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. They caught the last train for the coast.
Yeah.
In other words,
they're gone.
The Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost are not outside of you.
Wow.
They caught the last train for the coast. In other words, when you're in that place of the music being dead within you, you think that everything's gone.
It's somewhere else.
We disconnected coming here so we could play this game, or we think we're disconnected.
Yes. Yeah.
We put this veil up or whatever.
Yeah,
I don't know what to call it, but this whole life has been in search of that American dream, which we in America call the American dream because we live here.
The American pie.
Yes, I believe everybody has that dream of finding that place where you just are happy to be alive.
Yeah.
And just enjoying life, no matter what you're doing. And no matter where you are living.
Yeah.
It's your dream.
Yes.
And only because of him being in America and us being in America right now, we call it the American dream, but it's anybody's dream.
It's anybody's dream.
And it's the dream of waking up.
That's beautiful.
Right?
That is so
it's
beautiful.
It's the dream of understanding that the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost is you. It's within you.
Yep.
The temple.
Yeah.
Your body is the temple. It's like freedom. It's finally realizing. And that music, where you thought it was, in James Dean and all those rock and roll or whatever, is actually within you.
Within all of us,
You are the music.
That's so beautiful.
And it's, when you allow the music outside of you, the chaos, everything else to die, then you can find that truth of,
That's beautiful, Donna.
the sound of you.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, John McLean.
Yes. And thank you, Amber from Ohio.
Dawn, not John. Dawn
McLean. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And thank you, Amber, so much for this, for this request.
Yeah.
Yes. And wow, it's been a long.
This will be a long one, but we love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
guys.
so much for being with us and for listening and for being here with us on
Lyrical Wisdom.